you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it." He wasn't content to threaten me from across the street. He followed me halfway around the world, convinced we were meant to be. I first met Alexander Sapper on a misty spring morning in London. I was editing a feature in Hyde Park Corner. She was arriving at a nearby cafe after teaching her dawn meditation workshop. Her presence seemed to still the air, dark hair pinned neatly, a pale blue shawl draped over her shoulders, and an effortless glance that had drawn hundreds of thousands of followers to her Instagram page. She was warm, witty, and disarmingly honest about her transition from a corporate lawyer in New York to a global wellness influencer. We chatted about the city's hidden bustle, the way the coach horns echoed like distant thunder, and I left feeling I just brushed against something luminous. Within a week, I was reading her newsletter. Alexandra's mornings began with sun salutations by the Thames. Her afternoons involved tea at the Serpentine. Her evenings closed with candlelit journaling in a flat overlooking the city lights. She spoke of building a sanctuary within chaos, how mindfulness could diffuse the loudest anxieties. I admired her clarity, the scent of bergamot in her words, the soft timbre of her convictions. And then came the messages. It began harmlessly, a direct message on Instagram. "Hey Alexandra, your workshop changed my life. Thank you." She reported it as sweet, almost banal, a fan reaching out. But 3 messages later, he learned her middle name, the name of her childhood dog, and that she preferred jasmine tea to caramel. He signed each message R. At first, she replied politely, "Thanks for your support." But R's tone shifted. He began to speak of destiny. "We were meant to find each other in this life. I can show you a love deeper than you imagined." She ignored him. We all did. Within days, email alerts pinged at unfathomable hours. Midnight British time, dawn Bali time, whenever she logged off. R knew when she went live, inviting her to private chats. He praised her voice as hypnotic, then steered his compliments towards obsession. "I dream of showing you London by moonlight. I'll follow you anywhere, my light." Behind her composed smile in the videos, I sensed uncertainty. She confided in me over tea at the tiny Notting Hill bistro. "He's precise, every compliment rehearsed, it chills me." Yet, after each workshop, she checked her phone again, perhaps hoping for normalcy. In July, she boarded a flight to Bali for a 2-week retreat, a safe distance, she thought, from London's bustle and R's fantasies. One would believe that 7,000 miles might quell an unhinged admirer, but as the sun rose over Ubud's rice terraces, her inbox lit up. "What a beautiful sunset, almost as beautiful as your smile." A video link followed, time-stamped at 2 in the morning. She played it. On the screen, a shadow moved outside her villa's sliding glass door. A foot, dark-socked, scuffed the wooden deck. R's voice whispered off camera, "I bought a gift for you." Her breath caught. She dashed to lock the door, heart hammering like a frenzied percussion. She contacted local police. They knocked politely the next morning, offered sympathetic smiles and filled a report. The next evening, a hotel security guard found R's empty backpack beneath the poolside lounge chairs. Her panic climbed. Even the retreat staff seemed uneasy. They escorted her inside, warning her not to leave alone. Yet each night, the distant hum of motorcycles and the rustle of bamboo whispered conspiracies. Back in London, the UK police pressed charges: harassment, stalking. A restraining order issued. Alexandra thought she was safe, but the man she thought bound by British legalities was no ordinary stalker. He boarded a plane the day after the order, clutching his buff-coloured backpack and a printout of her itinerary. He landed in Denpasar, rented a scooter, and followed the GPS breadcrumb trail she accidentally left public on social media. By late August, Alexandra had fled Bali for Laos, seeking refuge in a jungle retreat she heard whispered about on a travel forum. She hoped anonymity in a place of waterfalls and teak bungalows. I remember the look on her face when she emailed me the address. Pale, drawn, like the moon reflected on a still lake. I booked the next flight to Vientiane, my mind racing faster than my heartbeat. She'd arrived before me, settling into a bungalow that overlooked a river gorge. The air smelled of wet earth and wild jasmine. At night, cicadas strummed to the stars. She confided that she hadn't slept properly in weeks, dreaming of footsteps, misplacing her phone, then remembering R's photo plastered on her screen. I reached Laos 2 days later. We met at a stall by the Mekong, sipped iced coffee sweetened with condensed milk, and she scanned the crowded ferry terminals for any sign of him. She told me she felt like a ghost in her own life, haunted by a single name, Rob Keating. Every local policeman shrugged, his crimes committed in another jurisdiction. My anxiety knotted tighter as we hiked to the retreat. I imagined R slipping through the underbrush, silent sandals on damp leaves. On our second night in the jungle, the retreat host, an elderly monk named Songji, said he'd seen a stranger lurking near the entrance. Alexandra froze. We crept out, flashlights slicing through the dark. At the gate, footprints pressed into the soft mud, large, booted, fresh. She dropped to her knees, tracing them with trembling fingers, then looked down to see her own footprints mingling with his. She gasped. "Run," I whispered. We tore back to the bungalow. The door was ajar. Inside, the air was colder. The wooden floorboards creaked as though breathing. On the low table lay a small box wrapped in banana leaf. Alexander didn't need to open it to know it was from him. She froze, tears spilling. I opened the door wider. The long corridor led to darkness. He stood at the far end, tall, in a charcoal shirt, face obscured by shadows. In his hand he held a Polaroid. The photo showed us, Alexandra and me, huddled on the porch swing in London, laughing in sunlight we thought were private. He followed us every step. Alexandra screamed, a sound that fractured the night. R lowered his hand, took a step forward, then Sonchi appeared, chanting, and the stalker faltered. The monk placed a hand on R's shoulder. R blinked, as if waking from a spell, dropped the photo, and fled into the black. Alexandra and I left Laos at first light. She landed in London a woman changed, eyelids heavy with memory, a quiet awareness in her eyes. Over the following weeks, detectives in 3 countries coordinated for the first time: UK, Bali, Laos, exchanging fingerprints, phone records, flight manifests. In May 2025, Rob Keating was convicted of international stalking, not just under British law, but under a merging treaty for cross-border crimes against individuals. But the conviction did not end it. In the press gallery, a journalist asked Alexandra how she felt. She paused, glanced at the shuttered cafe windows on Baker Street, and said, "I lost a piece of myself chasing peace that didn't exist. He didn't just follow my body, he haunted my trust. If I learned anything, it's that freedom isn't where you run, it's in deciding what fears you refuse to feed." She closed her eyes, a single tear gliding down her cheek. She had faced her watcher, and in doing so, reclaimed her story. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He drove 60 miles to crash through her gates at 2 AM, convinced that Jennifer Aniston was destined to be his forever. Jennifer Aniston's life had always straddled 2 worlds, the glaring spotlight of Hollywood and the comforting routine of her Bel Air home. After a long day on set, she will return to her manicured privacy of her gated estate, olive trees lining the drive, flowering bougainvillea climbing stone columns, and the quiet hiss of sprinklers at dusk. Inside, she prized simplicity, creamy walls, pale oak floors, and family photographs smiling on the mantel. Her days began with a mug of chamomile tea on the terrace overlooking city lights and ended with light jazz in the living room. Despite her fame, this sanctuary made her feel ordinary, grounded, at peace. It was here, beneath the layered security of tall hedges and high walls, that Jimmy Wayne Carwile made his quiet entry into her life. A 48-year-old mechanic from Mississippi, Jimmy had watched her on screen for decades, first as Rachel on a sitcom, then in blockbuster films and red carpet premieres. To him, she was more than a celebrity. She was the woman he'd been waiting for, the one destined to rescue him from the loneliness. So he began to write. It started with letters, handwritten pages slit through the tiny slit of her front gate. The first note was polite. "My dearest Jennifer, you are the light in a dark world." Security found it mundane, almost quaint, and destroyed it unopened. But the second letter grew urgent. "I know your schedule. I know your guards. I will wait for you." It rattled the gate guards, who tightened patrols but found no clues, only the empty envelope stained with coffee. By the third week, Jimmy had graduated from letters to live surveillance. Guards reported seeing a lone car idling near the entrance at dawn. He wore a mechanic's jumpsuit and stared at the gate until the guard's silhouette appeared in the booth. He'd smile, 35 seconds of hello, and then drive off. Cameras caught his license plate, yet a background check revealed nothing that disqualified him from driving within city limits. He'd smile politely when interviewed by police. "I'm just a fan, officer." Next came the gifts. Small paintings of her face, crudely executed, smeared with oil pastels, and a plastic garland of daisies hung on her gate. They arrived at dawn, often accompanied by a note, "For my bride." Behind that phrase lay an obsession. He believed himself Jesus and her his chosen one. The gifts felt threatening, intimate. Her security team disposed of them, but the messages persisted. On May the 5th, 2025, everything escalated beyond mere intrusion. At 2:17 a.m, an armoured SUV barreled into the guard post, shattering plexiglass and sending splinters flying. Guards scrambled as the vehicle's engine roared. Through the mess, they glimpsed Jimmy's face framed by the steering wheel, eyes wild, knuckles white against the glass. He leapt from the wreckage, brandishing 2 roses, one white, one red, and staggered towards the broken gate. Inside her bedroom, Jennifer awoke to sirens and alarms. Security cameras cut to chaos, uniforms chasing a lone figure through the gate's shards. She pressed herself against the wall as guards tackled him, cuffs clashing. Clutched in his blood-stained hands were the petals of the red rose. Guards led Jimmy away, his jumpsuit torn, eyes pleading. "I just wanted to be with her," he said, collapsing to his knees. Officers recovered his phone, dozens of recorded voicemails, confessions of love, threats of despair if she refused him. One time-stamped message chilled them. He had crawled through her garden hedges at night, whispering her name outside her bedroom window. At the precinct, detectives found his social media. Jimmy posted wild vows on Instagram Live. "She is my queen. I'll die for her," and tagged her official account. The violation rippled through her world. A restraining order would barely contain his delusions. In court, he persisted on a psych evaluation, claiming divine mandate. Yet the scars he left, the uprooted gate, the guard's injuries, the roses scattered in blood, were all too real. He was convicted of stalking, vandalism, and assault with a deadly weapon. Each charge echoed his unmoored obsession. Weeks later, in a quiet interview, Jennifer was asked how one woman could endure such terror. She paused, eyes steady, and spoke softly. "You learn that safety isn't a place, it's a state of mind, and when someone believes they own your story, you reclaim it by living. Every morning I walk into this garden knowing he's behind bars, but also knowing fear can never plant roots where courage grows." Her words hung in the air, a testament not to her fame, but to her undeniable strength. If you're hearing this, it means I survived long enough to tell it. If you made it this far, maybe you're not like the others. Hit subscribe and I'll keep the stories coming. He traced my every step in a battered notebook, each entry a promise that I would never escape his watchful pages. The first time I met Doris Aguila, she was laughing as she ducked under the awning of Phoenix's hottest taco truck, her auburn hair catching the neon glow of its sign. It was late October 2024, and the air tasted of mesquite smoke and warming spices. Doris was 25, a marketing associate who spent her days pitching brands and her evenings hiking Camelback Mountain's rugged trails. She had an easy confidence, the kind that made strangers confide in her and made her a target. I was photographing the city's rising entrepreneurs for a magazine feature when our interview overlapped at a networking mixer. She charmed the room with jokes about her grandmother's tamale recipe and serious devotion to weekend yoga. I asked about her life, and she said she just ended a brief relationship. It wasn't a good match. She laughed, raising her coffee cup. "But I'm ready to focus on me." We parted that night, promising to share contacts. I never forgot her warmth until weeks later, when she called me in tears. It arrived on November the 2nd, tucked under her apartment door like a desperate secret. A plain white envelope, no return address, held a single sheet of lined paper, corners creased. In neat, looping script, it read, "Doris, I miss you already. Tell me when you'll be back in town. J." She stared at the J at the bottom, brow furrowed. She dated Juan Cuala for only 3 weeks and they parted without rancor. He was polite but tentative. He'd sent occasional texts, nothing alarming. Probably a misdirected note, she'd shrugged, tossing it into the recycling bin. But by the next morning, another note appeared. This one slipped through the mail slot. Its envelope stamped, urgent, and inside, "I see you every morning on the 7:15 bus. You wear black leggings and that red scarf. You looked beautiful today." Her stomach knotted. She rode a different bus. She commuted by car most days. Who was watching her? She checked her windows and locked doors, convinced an errant breeze had left it ajar. Then she found a third note on her windshield wiper. "That blouse was too low. You caught my eye, but I want more than a glance." Fear bloomed in her chest. She reported it to the leasing office. They suggested filing a police report. She called 911. The dispatcher assured her an officer would patrol. By nightfall, a fourth note lay waiting in her mailbox. "I thought you wanted to focus on yourself, but I'm not done with you." Determined to catch the intruder, Doris checked her security cameras the next morning. Nothing. No one approached her door, no lingering figures. She felt watched, but invisible. Then her phone buzzed, a photo text from an unknown number. It showed her walking into work at sunrise, just minutes before, yet her phone had been in her purse. The image was crisp, red scarf, black leggings, turquoise ring glinting on her finger. That evening, when she returned home, the leasing office called. Someone had left a package for her. Inside the lobby box was a small, leather-bound notebook, its cover stamped in gold. Doris Aguila. She backed away as the reception sat it on the counter. It was slipped under the door, he said, eyebrows raised. Her heart thundered. She pried it open to the first page, a neat entry dated October the 13th, before the first note. Met her at the taco truck. First glimpse. Auburn hair. Perfect laugh. Her breath caught. Scanning further down, she saw lists, walks, Camelback Trail. Every Saturday. Favorite coffee? Hazelnut latte. Lives? Skyview Apartments, Unit 12B. She sank to a pew by the elevator, hands trembling. She paged further, recounting dates, outfits, moods she'd shown him. She found an entry dated the previous night, her own handwriting, though she never touched the pen. Tonight, I'll slip back inside. She'll never suspect. I'll be the one she trusts. The next morning, Doris steered herself. She took the notebook, evidence in hand, and marched to the leasing office. The manager, pale and uncertain, watched her leaf through the pages. We have a master key, he said quietly. I'll change the locks, add motion sensors. She nodded, calling 911 on the spot. While she waited for the officer, she drove with her hazard lights on and the notebook on her lap, as if she could shield herself. The officer arrived 15 minutes later. Too long, she thought. He read a few pages, said, This is extensive. Whoever wrote this knew every corner of your life. They scoured the parking lot, found fresh footprints leading to her car door, but no prints on the notebook itself. They recommended she stay with friends. She packed a bag and moved into her sister's spare room that evening. Under a blanket, she tried to sleep, the notebook's presence haunting her dreams. Around midnight, her phone buzzed, a new message from the same burner number. You left your notebook behind. I can't sleep without it. I'll bring it back. She froze, phone trembling. She sent a photo of the notebook's cover back to the unknown number. You have it. Please leave me alone. Minutes passed, then another text. I can't help myself. Her sister, awake now, clutched her arm. They called the police. An hour later, officers descended on her apartment and found her body in the bathtub. The notebook's pages torn and bloody screwed across the tiles. Juanquela's prints were on the tub's edge, and in red ink on an open page was a final entry, written in a jagged scrawl not his before. She taught me to love, now I teach her fear. In the weeks that followed, Juanquela pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the notebook, preserved as Exhibit A, told a clearer story than any testimony. Each detailed entry, each list, each intimate drawing of her features spoke of escalating obsession that the law was too slow to intercept. Doris's family set up a foundation in her name, advocating for stronger anti-stalking statutes and emergency protections for victims. At the inaugural gala, her sister whispered to a gathering of lawmakers and survivors. She believed the notebook could contain her life. Instead, it wrote her death sentence. The attendees fell silent. Weeks later, the new law was passed: immediate emergency shelters for stalking victims, mandatory confiscation of personal details from alleged stalkers, and swift revocation of bail in cases of documented obsession. But no law could rewrite the final pages of a life cut short. At Doris's memorial, her favourite hazelcut latte was served, and her notebook was displayed behind glass, its cover scarred, its pages sealed. Visitors left flowers by the exhibit, red roses and black pens, symbols of love, and the written word turned deadly. When I visited, I stood before the glass case and traced my finger on the signage, in memory of Doris Agula, 1999 to 2024. May we never forget the cost of obsession. A breeze from the open window ruffled my coat. I glanced around. No one was there but me, and the ghost of her laughter echoing beneath the vaulted ceiling. If you're hearing this, it means I tried to survive long enough to tell it.